Good evening, folks, and welcome to the 6 o'clock news on sbynews.com. Unfortunately, what I'm going to provide tonight is not your normal happy-go-lucky Joe Albero stuff. I've got a couple of situations that we need to discuss openly and everybody understand where we're coming from. Folks, Mr. Gary Comegys, Vice President of the City Council, as many of you are aware, has been diagnosed with cancer. Folks, this is stage 3 cancer. It's very serious, and my post today, or posts I should say, in reference to this situation was and is as sincere as it gets. To the Comegys family, if there's anything that I can do, please welcome my offer. I'd be more than happy to help in any way, shape, or form. I've been through this just recently, as you know, with my parents, my mother, of course. I understand how difficult this is to go through, and I'd be happy to help in any way, which way, shape, or form. And that comes from my heart. It's unconditional. It's whatever I can do, I'll be there. Even if I'm a last resort, I don't mind that. Whatever it takes. Everything needs to be put aside. We need to work together and help Gary get through this. My thoughts and my prayers go out to you and your family, Gary and Debbie, and anything we can do to help out. It's a tough situation, and been there, done that. Just remember, whatever I can do. Let me move on, folks, because it's not an easy discussion to go over. I'd like to take a few minutes, several minutes at this point, to go over a situation that happened over Christmas and my position on that. I normally would keep quiet about this, but I want everyone to be clear as to a serious situation that's happened here. When Sarah Foxwell was found on Christmas night, December 25th, that evening, a local blogger and his associates, who I feel are extremely untrustworthy, have never been men of their words, in fact have been liars, all of a sudden wanted to reach out and create a fundraiser for a burial fund for Sarah Foxwell. They weren't out helping look for her, but they felt that they wanted to get involved. Now me, I think they're shady. My concern was, would the Foxwell family ever see any of that money in the first place if they were to do it? I think they wanted to do bumper stickers or something along that line. And I went downstairs, my office is upstairs, and I went downstairs to my wife and I sat down with her and I said, you know, Jennifer, there's a bit of a problem. So-and-so is trying to create a fundraiser for Sarah Foxwell's funeral fund. And she said, really? And I said, yeah. She said, well, what do you want to do about it? And I said, well, here's my thought. My mother had just passed away before Christmas, and every year at Christmas we would give my mother the money that it would take for her to survive throughout the year. So since we weren't doing that this year, I said, what do you think about perhaps paying for Sarah's funeral? And she said, Joe, I think it's a great idea. You should do that. So with her support, I picked up the phone and I called John and Robin Holloway from Holloway Funeral Home. I called them at their home and I expressed to them what was going on with this other blogger and these other individuals. Of course, they knew who they were and agreed with me wholeheartedly that something needed to be done. So Joe Albero and Jennifer Albero offered to pay 100% for Sarah Foxwell's funeral. And John and Robin Holloway were very grateful and told me they'd get back to me with the overall cost, and that was that. I then picked up the phone and I called S.J. Disharoon and his wife. They own Salisbury Monument. And I asked them if we could come together and come up with something for Sarah Foxwell. And they said, you know, we were just discussing this, and boy, we've got this black angel and blah, 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 and it would be perfect. He said, in fact, you know, we got a phone call from one of the fire stations offering to put up some money. Would you be willing to allow them to participate? And I said, of course, yeah, that's no problem at all. I think that's wonderful. And they wanted to send the monument down to Georgia and have her image etched onto the monument. Well, to make a long story short, folks, in the interim I had done a post about the Foxwells not having their bank account fund transferred into a trust account. I think you all remember that. Since I'm pressed for time, I've got to move this along. Forgive me. But the bottom line is, Sarah Foxwell's grandmother wrote me a letter. And it was not a pleasant letter at all. I didn't like it. I responded to her. And I said, ma'am, I would support you 100% if that account was a trust fund, so that you, your husband, Sarah's mother, and or father cannot access those funds. We had promoted it to be such, you had promised to do such, and it has not. Therefore, I will not support you. In fact, I'll fight you 100% until it becomes a trust fund, as you promised. I went on to say, ma'am, while you may not appreciate who I am, I'm really not such a bad guy. In fact, I'm the guy that offered to pay 100% for your granddaughter's funeral. Well, I had not realized at that point in time the following. I had made contact with John Holloway after several attempts, pardon me, and I said, John, I've tried to get a hold of you. I need to get you the funding for Sarah's funeral expense. Can you give me a total? And I'll drop the check off at your office this way. It doesn't matter if we meet or run into one another. I can get that check. And he says, nah, Joe, don't worry about it. And I said, no, John, I don't want this hanging over me. So if you can just give me a total, I'll drop the check off. John says, no, really, don't worry about it. I said, John, what do you mean don't worry about it? And he says, Joe, in unique situations like this with children, sometimes we'll work with these distributors and they'll give us a discount on this or that. He says, in this particular case, because of the horrific situation, everything was donated. He said, while we appreciate your offer, I can't bill you for anything because I haven't been billed for anything. That was number one. When S.J. Disharoon called me about the monument arriving and he went to install it, I went out to the gravesite with S.J., with permission from Sarah's family, took pictures. At the very end, I had my checkbook out and I said, S.J., what do I owe you for this? He says, nothing. I said, no, you don't understand. And he says, Joe, nothing. And I explained to him what had happened with the Holloways, and I said, please, don't do this. Let's, whatever it is. And he said, Joe, my wife and I discussed it. We're paying for it. So I want, number one, S.J. Disharoon and his wife. I want John Holloway and his wife recognized for what they had done. While my intentions were good and honorable and unconditional, Sarah Foxwell's grandmother wrote a very nasty letter to this blogger attacking me, saying that I had never paid a penny. Ma'am, you're right, I did not. At the time of my reply letter to you, it was still under my full intention that that's what I would be doing. I was the anonymous donator, my wife and I, and we had unconditionally made those offers to you and your family. And let me close with this. To Jennifer Foxwell, who rejected my father from that funeral, whose name is Frank Albero. Let me explain a little something to you, Jennifer. While the world may not recognize the fact that my father came to your aid when you got booted out of your boyfriend's house with 7 children, took you in, provided you a home, provided you groceries, and ultimately even bought you a car, to reject Frank Albero from your daughter's funeral? Look, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to say it, folks. But this is a woman who turns around and says Joe Albero is the same monster as Thomas Leggs. That's why I don't like Jennifer Foxwell. That's why I don't appreciate that family and the things that they have to say. And you folks should know that. That's the truth about that situation. Mr. Comegys, Debbie Comegys, again, anything I can do to help, it's an unconditional offer from my heart. Whatever I can do, I'll be there for you and your family. Thank you for listening, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.